Let's join from Benghazi now. Dr. Ahmed bin Tahir, he's a medical doctor, joins us on the phone. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell us the mood right now in Benghazi.
We are experiencing here a new spirit of Benghazi, if you like to say. The people are here, it's very, cheering, new attitude in Benghazi. It's a very clean city now. The people trying to come together to show the city in its new face. At the same time, we are really sad about what's happening in Tripoli and the western part of our country and what's happening in our capital. We are waiting what will happen in the next few days in Tripoli. And we are following the news, what's happening yesterday in the Security Council. And we are just waiting what's going on in Tripoli.
And you're a medical doctor, and sources I've spoken to in the city are talking about the effort to try and find out or document allegations of war crimes, human rights abuses. Tell me what sort of evidence is coming to light now as protesters take over the streets and the city and evidence begins to appear?
Actually, I myself am interested in the human rights, have already background in human rights activity, and I'm in connection with the Human Rights Watch here in Benghazi right now. I was spoken with them several times. We are making, sort of interviews with the people, the families of the victims, we are trying to collect data, what's happening, and the story of the injured, and try to collect and to visit the places, the prisons, the political prisons, and we can see here the starting up sort of documentation, like making up a list. This is one part. The other part is the missionaries. There were interviews with them. They were, brought up to front of judges, and there is starting the human rights works here in Benghazi, starting up with the great efforts for Human Rights Watch here. It's starting to making interviews and collect the data.
All right, thanks so much, Mr. bin Tahir.
Okay.
Well, stay with us here on Al Jazeera. The pressure on Libya's leader, Muammar al-Gaddafi, to step down grows. Even Libya's UN representative describing the country's regime as fascist. And anti-government protests continue to gather momentum in Bahrain with the return of a prominent opposition leader.
Well, welcome back. I want to first take you to the United States, where we're going to see a lot of unusual weather happening here for parts of California. A low pressure area sinking down, bringing a lot of cold air with it. Los Angeles seeing some snow showers, believe it or not, in their forecast. Mostly rain, but as you get a little bit higher out of the city, snow is going to be not much of a problem, but it's going to be very unusual for them. That snow is going to be moving out here towards the east, really towards New Mexico, Arizona, and also across the border into the higher elevations of Mexico. As we take a look at what's happening down in South America, very serious situations, especially for Bolivia. Over the last several weeks, we have seen extreme flooding in that region. 7,000 people have been displaced because of the rain showers. Now, over the next couple of days, we're going to get a little bit of a break right there, but the rain is going to come back, as well as Rio de Janeiro. We're going to be seeing some very heavy rain showers. Into their forecast, they could expect some localized flooding as well. Up towards Europe, very messy situation. I want to show you, though, what's going to be happening down here in the south. See this area of circulation across Italy? Well, watch what happens as we go from Sunday with this little area now into Monday. It really explodes. We're looking at a storm system right here that's going to be producing quite a bit of rain, not just for Italy, but also for the southern parts of France, as well as into Africa.
As geeks take on dictators, bloggers turn dissidents, and social networks root for social justice, governments are going cyber, spying on their citizens, erecting firewalls like iron curtains, and closing down websites. We ask, is cyber-generated change virtual or real? empire at this time on AlJazeera.
Welcome back. Here are the top stories now on Al Jazeera. The UN Security Council has voted unanimously to adopt sanctions against Libya's government. Protesters have taken control of most of eastern Libya and are closing in on the capital Tripoli. Libya's deputy ambassador to the UN, who has now turned himself on Gaddafi, described Libya's regime as fascist.
The Tripoli regime has no longer any credibility. It goes without saying that this resolution represents moral support for our people who are resisting before the firing which has been imposed on them by the regime. It is an essential point in the position of the international community on the occasion of the carnage we are witnessing today in Libya. I have in mind here an attempt to protect civilians. This resolution will be a signal in order to put an end to this fascist regime.
Well, the Libyan government has invited a group of journalists to the capital to tell them everything is under control. Well, that's far from reality, according to some sources. Nadim Barber reports.
A family and a community in grief. Gaddafi is the enemy of God, they chant in this suburb of the Libyan capital. 8 men and 1 woman were reportedly shot dead by security forces during an anti-government protest on Friday.
We have Chevrolet car, and they were killed, all of them. A whole family, they were killed.
Protesters had tried to march from the Tajura neighborhood to central Tripoli. The response was uncompromising. These pictures were filmed elsewhere in the capital. It's hard to say how many have been killed in Tripoli, but each death seems to be hardening the demonstrators' resolve. Some districts are now in the hands of Gaddafi's opponents. While a few kilometers away, the colonel's supporters try to convince the outside world that nothing's changed.
Very good. No problem, Libya. No problem, Libya. Understand? Okay.
Bin Laden.
This man says that the unrest was fomented by Osama bin Laden, a claim first voiced by Muammar al-Gaddafi and now repeated by his son in front of a group of invited journalists.
Nobody wants to fight, but we have to solve this issue. And hopefully we will solve it peacefully. And I'm sure we'll do it by tomorrow.
But then he's asked whether his father will end up being pushed out like Egypt's President Mubarak, and his confidence seems to vanish, at least for a moment.
No.
Nadim Barber, Al Jazeera.
Well, Tripoli is, of course, one of the few remaining strongholds of the Libyan leader, whose base is in the Bab al-Aziziyah district. Well, we've been hearing from one resident who lives close to that base on how people there are coping.
There's a lot of security. Now, if you want to go to the downtown, it's supposed to be just 10 minutes from here to the downtown. To pass, maybe you will pass maybe 11 or 10 stops, checkpoints, security points. They asking for the passports, they asking for the phones, and they checking also our mobiles. Most of the people, they are afraid to go around Tripoli, and there is a lot of families out of Tripoli. They cannot go in.
Bahrain's opposition leader spoke to thousands of his supporters in central Manama on Saturday night. Hassan Sheikh called for the government to respond to the people's demands for far-reaching reform. The return of the senior Shia politician from exile is expected to boost ongoing anti-government protests. Another opposition march is expected to begin in about an hour. Powerful tribal chiefs in Yemen have joined anti-government protests, calling for President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step down. Tens of thousands of tribesmen from Hashid and the second largest tribal federation, Bakhil, took to the streets of Imran. That's a tribal stronghold north of the capital. Hussein Abdullah Al-Ahmar, a key Hashid leader and a long-time ally to Saleh, announced his resignation from the ruling General People's Conference Party. And 3 people have been killed in the Tunisian capital during clashes with security forces. Soldiers used tear gas to disperse protesters who threw stones and burned tires. A government official blames the unrest on supporters of ousted President Ben Ali. At least 12 people were injured and about 100 others arrested. The interim Tunisian Prime Minister has spoken exclusively to AlJazeera following Saturday's clashes. He's promising a faster transition to democracy in the country.
At this moment in time, we are trying to do our duty. Next week is going to be a decisive week, decisive in showing the roadmap and for the coming period of time. And the Tunisian people will say their word in respect of the coming period of time and what will happen in it. So we are keen to achieve this. It is not about government resignation or not resignation. The way we look at it today, we have an historic opportunity in order to achieve aims that we were dreaming of when we were young people. It's a historic opportunity to achieve democracy and also in order to get into democratic transition.
Well, after about 30 years of the same president, Egypt is moving to limit presidential terms to a maximum of 8 years. Well, that's one of the proposed changes to the constitution that will be put to a referendum ahead of elections later this year. Meanwhile, the ruling military council is apologizing after security forces beat protesters during overnight demonstrations in Cairo. Thousands demonstrated in Liberation or Tahrir Square on Friday, calling for a faster implementation of reforms. The military councils ordered the immediate release of all those arrested and stressed it did not and would not issue orders to attack protesters.
First of all, we apologize to the youth of the revolution. If we arrested one or several individuals by mistake, then we are sorry. I hope that there will not be any further gatherings that will involve those thugs and lawbreakers. Our youth is rational and well-informed and will not be fooled by misleading information that circulates on Facebook.
Tuareg, now in the main opposition party, is getting ready to form the next government. The ruling Fianna Fáil party is facing its worst defeat in nearly 80 years after it was blamed for the economic hardship many voters are now facing. Rory Challens reports.